afternoon or morning or whatever it is for you guys. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for being here. I always get confused when I say it because like for right now, it's 2:30 in the afternoon. But for you guys, it's a long song Saturday, so at least the video's debuting in the morning, but you may be watching at some completely other time and point. But what we are doing right now for this long song Saturday is listening to this much awaited, much suggested track from McDonald and Giles. We have some King Crimson alumni in here. And we're going to listen to what's actually the final track on the album, which is Birdman. This album being released in 1970. A lot of you have been asking me to listen to this track for quite a long time, so I figured, hey, now's the time to do so. So those of you who had suggested this track: Bob Holtzman, Claudette Miss, or Miss Claudette, Michael Capewell, Robbie Gray, Steve Connor, Joan Bonacos? Let's see, Come On Is Such Joy, and JMPMUSVA. So, you guys, thank you so much for the suggestion. Obviously, we've heard Mr. McDonald and King Crimson, but yeah, I'm assuming this is probably going to be Crimson-esque. There's really only one way to find out. So let's go ahead and give it a listen. Will we listen to the rest of the album? It's likely. It's pretty likely. But let's go ahead and start at the end, and we'll go from there. Here we go. Hold on. It's coming. I promise you. Just... this happens at the most inopportune times. One more time. Here we go. Birdman. I feel like we're in a broken toy shop. This little funky section. Yeah. Slowly down. Perfect. There you go. There you go. There you go. There you go. Oh, excuse me. Excuse me. Okay. Let's talk about Birdman. I want to talk about this. Let's put some respect on McDonald and Giles' names today. When the track first... No, let's even dive before that. Before I talk about the track. I mention this every once in a while, but I'm going to mention it again, just to put it out there. When it comes to me sitting here and listening and reacting to songs, especially when they're over like 10 minutes. When they're over 10 minutes, it's a little bit more to grasp. It's a little bit more to take in and especially digest it and baby bird it back to you guys. Especially for myself, like, even though of course I'm used to listening to prog and everything, like, I need time with it. I can tell you already, this track, I need a second listen with it. However, here's my progression of thoughts, my Dream Theater train of thoughts, if you will. Here's how I felt listening to this. At first, for the first maybe, I don't know, let's just say 3 minutes or so, I was listening to this and I wasn't really a fan, to be honest. I like the opening of the a cappella voices, that was very beautiful. But then when it kind of got into that kind of very slow build up and there's little sounds here and there, a lot of times, depending of course, but a lot of times, especially in the beginning of like, well, this isn't the beginning of an album, but like in the beginning of an epic, I'm like, let's get into it. I want to get right into the music. I understand a slow build up, a slow intro, but I'm just like, let's just jam out. Let's get to the music. And in the beginning, I was like, okay, I understand we're setting a setting and, you know, we're creating an atmosphere and a tone for the future, but let's get into the music. Then the music came. And it had this kind of Beatles-esque quality to it. It was kind of silly in some ways. Definitely not taking itself so seriously, even though the musicianship and the singing was very nice. I was like, okay, let's see how this progresses. Because at this point, I'm kind of thinking Abbey Road medley. Like, I'm kind of feeling like it might be something like that. However, as the track went on, and as it moved through its various movements, I found myself enjoying it a lot. The longer it went on, the better it got for me. Pretty much starting, because this track is basically split up into 6 pieces. or 6 movements rather. The Inventor's Dream, The Workshop, Wishbone Ascension, Birdman Flies, Wings in the Sunset, and Birdman the Reflection. I'll tell you, from Birdman Flies, actually no, from Wishbone Ascension on, I was in. From halfway in Birdman Flies, I was all in. I was all in. Sometimes it takes time. It wasn't an immediate, it's clicking for me. But by the midpoint of the track, it did click. It snapped off a little bit. So obviously the musicianship from not only McDonald and Giles, but the rest of the band is high quality. Once again, you have some alumni from King Crimson, so you're expecting certain things, right? So listening to Giles, his drumming, his percussion, and what he brings to the table, you get that in full force here. His momentous drumming style with a lot of power, but a lot of subtlety in his movements, in his hands. The fills, what I call King Crimson fills, because Court of the Crimson King, you hear Giles drumming, it is insane. But specifically with the grooves and the fills that he lays down in those tracks, you get that here. If that's what you like out of King Crimson, you're getting it here. Because the fills here are like immediately a callback to early King Crimson sounds. I like that. I really like that style of drumming, and I'm loving it in here. From the subtle into, like I said, the much more momentous as it gets into those higher climaxes. Then the overall musicianship from McDonald. I mean, he plays everything here. He's playing guitar, piano, organ, sax, flute, clarinet, zither, and sundries, which I have no idea what sundries are, but obviously his horn playing, his flute playing is beautiful. It adds this almost pastoral quality into the more quiet passages of the music. But then you have those horn blasts which come in, and it just helps catapult. I almost said capitulate, but I think I'm thinking capitulate. Catapult those big moments even further into the skies. I do also see here that you have Mike Gray on the string and brass arrangements here as well. So obviously I would assume that McDonald, led those arrangements and kind of told them where they wanted certain things to be. And I think it's very rewarding listening to this, because especially from Birdman Flies, which actually, let me back up for just a second. So from what I can tell from the story in the song, this guy wants to fly. He builds himself some wings. He goes on a flight. It's successful. He comes back and he reflects on it. As far as I can tell, that's the story. But what I really like is that in the workshop, on the Ascension section, he says, slowly up, slowly down, faster up, faster down, like the beating of the wings, of course. He very gently left the ground. He very gently left the ground till he has left the ground, right? And then Birdman Flies. So I really like how the music at that particular moment, in that build-up from the Ascension, it perfectly builds up in its escalation in that one track. And then when it switches into Birdman Flies, the music kind of plateaus and just kind of fades away. And there's a singular held note that kind of strings us along. And then off of that singular note builds the foundation of Birdman Flies. And like the escalation and the organic buildup of music in Birdman Flies specifically, I think is just masterfully done. And you can hear the pages taken from King Crimson's book, of course, with these members, in how they built that atmosphere from the ground up, really. And from the ground up into the skies, actually, thinking about it. And that's just masterfully done. I'm very impressed with the way they did that, how they so perfectly put all the right sounds, the right notes, the right instruments in the right places, so that none of the build-up felt forced or like, okay, we got to get from here to here in this span of time. I can't speak for how they wrote this, but it just feels like it was a very organic, possibly a few notes written down here and there, like Miles Davis, and then we built off of it, improvising from there. I don't know. But at the same time, for as loose and improvisational as it feels, it also does feel very compositional, has a structure to it. So I think that's a nice balance that they have between the writing styles, whichever one they went for, or a mix, who knows. But either way, it's a great outcome after that. And then after Birdman Flies, we get the Wings in the Sunset, which is a very brief moment of kind of victory, success. We hit the mark, we hit the goal. And then we have another build-up in Birdman the Reflection. So what I'm really getting out of this is the build-ups, the atmospheres, the build-ups, the climaxes, and the way that everything is introduced, brought in, and playing their hearts out. And I think that that's very, very successful. And once again, the track definitely impressed me more than my first few minutes of reaction were kind of leading me to believe. This was really, really nice to listen to. Great, great suggestion, guys. I am very curious to hear these other few tracks on the album, though. So let's dive into the lyrics here briefly. Long ago in Walthamstow, a man he dreamed a singular scheme. He had no wish to join the fish, but he'd sigh, I'd love to fly. Sat in bed and scratched his head, so absurd to fly like a bird. Time flew past until at last, late one night, he saw the light. Careful hands drew up the plans, shapes and things like curious wings. Hieroglyphics, most prolific, numbered charts with all the parts. Now the work starts. So we are really getting a pretty straightforward and linear story here, which once again, I think really nicely fits into the music in the way that it sets a foundation and in some ways literally takes off that foundation. The workshop toiled for days on struts and stays, umpteen screws and numerous glues, harness leathers and rainbow feathers, hinges and joints at relevant points. And then into Wishbone Ascension till the golden dawnbeam sun, he saw that all the work was done. His face aglow ran up the road to Wishbone Hill, then pausing still, cast his eyes on distant skies and slowly moved his arms. And of course he gets into the flight, which we talked about, which nicely was also an instrumental passage. That's actually another thing. The track is not very loquacious or verbose. It is very succinct in its message and in the lyrics because we don't need a lot of lyrics. They put what's needed to tell the story and let the music do the rest, which I think is a very, very nice choice there. Wings in the sunset. Weary from his journey, Birdman circled homewards. Gliding through the sunset, he very gently floated down to the ground. And then that's when we have the instrumental musical reflection there. I think that was really, really fantastic. That was a great listen. Thank you guys for the suggestion. Like I said, we'll be checking out the rest at some point here in the near future. But for now, thanks for landing here with me. Hope you enjoyed the journey, the flight, if you will. You can let me know those thoughts in the comments below. You can follow me over on Twitter. You can support the channel on Patreon. As always, I appreciate you spending some time with me. Well, I'm assuming if you're watching this, you're still here. But I was going to say, if you checked out in the first few minutes, you're not even going to see this. But if you are seeing this, thank you. I appreciate you relaxing a little bit with me, enjoying the music. And I hope that you come back tomorrow, guys. Have a wonderful one out there. I'll see you later. Bye, guys.